Ladies, are we all set? And I'll get this show on the road, shall we? Fantastic. Perfect. So thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name's Ellie Greeny, and I am the Managing Director at Transition Partners. We specialise in IT, business change, transformation, and digital recruitment across Europe. Our home is Leeds. That's where our head office is. And we've got a really strong community in the north. Please feel free to follow us on LinkedIn. So that's Transition Partners, to stay up to date on all our events and all the fun stuff that we're up to, which includes blogs, pods, vlogs, everything. You name it, we get involved in it. We run circa 30 plus tech events per year, covering a range of topics with a really strong focus on diversity and inclusion. I've been an active member of the Women in Tech community for around 5 years now, and I also host a podcast called The Journey of a Woman in Tech. Today's topic, all around menopause, is a topic that's often been brought up and discussed at our meetups, but never been explored fully. So it's all about how menopause can affect women, trans and non-binary individuals and their families during this challenging time. For me personally, it was a topic I wanted to explore as my mum entered menopause at 48 and she found it really tough. At first, she started with hot sweats, lack of sleep, restless legs, itchy arms. She got very irritable and had many mind fogs. She had a background in nursing, so knew the signs straight away. She tried HRT, which helped for a while, but unfortunately her best friend was diagnosed with breast cancer, which gave her a real scare. So actually she came off HRT, and since then she's been managing with a plant-based diet, low caffeine and low sugar to help on the side effects. But I wanted to know more about it and what we can do as employers and a community to support one another through the menopause. So without further ado, we'll get cracking today. It's an interactive session, so there's plenty of opportunity to ask questions. But what I'll do now is I'll introduce you to my lovely speakers and why they wanted to get involved in today's event. So first of all, Leanne, will you tell us all about yourself, Leanne?
Hi everyone, so I'm Leanne. I'm one of the co-founders of Lyria Digital Health, which is a startup that started 2 weeks after lockdown, and we're looking at providing a technical solution for the menopause. We were inspired by our mums who went through the menopause and how they went through it, and personally from my experience, it totally changed my mum. It totally changed how she responded to things. She lost her sort of shine. She was a very outspoken, very vivacious woman. And that all changed when the menopause hit, and her menopause hit due to cancer treatment. So it'll be really good to sort of discuss other ways of sort of going through the menopause, not just the traditional change of life menopause, but also due to medical reasons as well. And I'm really excited to be a part of this because from our focus groups and a lot of the discussions we've been having, it's all about education. Education can solve a lot of this. Just knowing about what's going to happen, what's coming over the horizon. So I've been quite an advocate as someone who's in my mid-30s to sort of go out there and say, you need to start paying attention to this now. It's not something that's going to happen, you know, too far down the line. So you need to look into it now. So that's why I'm here.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Deborah Molderig.
Hi everybody, I'm Deborah Muldrig and I'm a digital asset manager at Conveyor Insurance. And the reason why I'm involved is I actually started going through the menopause at age 45. I knew nothing about the menopause, so for very selfish reasons, I set up a group at the company I worked for at the time and invited other women along and gentlemen as well to understand the symptoms. So it just started off as just like a little chat group to start with, and it grew into something bigger, but it helped me understand what I was going through, and I had the support then of other people and I was able to support them as well. And I think that really is needed when you're going through the menopause, because some people luckily sail through it, but the majority of people don't, and the support is required.
Fantastic. And we can't wait to explore that and how you created the community before later on today. So thank you so much. Sarah Redwood from Peppy.
Hi, I'm Sarah and I'm from Peppy. I look after our partnerships. Peppy is a healthcare company that supports employees via their employer through major life transitions. A lot of them revolve around reproductive and women's health, so fertility, pregnancy and early parenthood, and of course the menopause. I actually got into this because I had IVF and my own sort of experience to parenthood. And similarly to the others, realised when I started working for Peppy how little I knew about menopause, how normal that was. Similarly to Leanne, I'm in my mid-30s. This is going to happen to me. And yeah, didn't know anything about it. And now it's what I live and breathe and talk about all day. So very happy to be here.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for giving up your time today and getting involved. Can't wait to find out more about your stories later on today. We're going to start, I think, with a few facts that are really going to bring things home. So I believe we're going to run through a couple of facts now. Sarah, if you're okay to start with yours, that'd be brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, as I mentioned in the introduction, so we look very much at supporting employees via their employer. So this is really the, how this is impacting people on the ground, and therefore how it's impacting their employers. But it's also the why it's important, why it's important to get support to people. We know that it really affects lots of different areas that are sort of key HR metrics, sickness and absence being one of them. 30% of menopausal women took sick leave because of their symptoms. Most didn't feel able to tell their manager for the real reason for their absence. I think this is sort of a broader problem as well in women's health. There's not that availability to say all the various ways in which women's health factors may affect you and may cause you to take time off. There's not typically that space to report that on your HR systems, for example. And then 2% of working age women with symptoms are on long-term sick leave, which is, that's a really a big amount, and we know that's where it really costs companies when people are on long-term sick.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, attrition, losing employees. This is something we know that all companies want to avoid, and this is actually the statistic that shocked me the most when I first saw it, that 10% say they considered leaving their job due to their menopause symptoms. I actually was corrected yesterday that this is by another source that said it's as high as 1 in 4. So I think there's two different pieces of research, which actually I think Ellie, you referenced initially when we were talking about this. So maybe the 1 in 4 is accurate. But anyway, it's
either way, it's shocking, isn't it?
It is, I think. And I think the thing that makes it more shocking is that these are experienced employees. They're typically senior, valuable employees. They've typically statistically likely to have been through some kind of parenthood experience and returned to work. And this is what's causing them to consider leaving their job. That was a real sort of shock moment for me when I first saw it. Mm-hmm. And then the ways it's sort of affecting you day to day. And I think we all know that sort of feeling when you're not feeling, quite right, and, you don't get as much done as you want to that day. And menopause can really heighten that. We know that nearly 60% of people experiencing menopause say it negatively impacts them at work. And I think that's the thing that I didn't really realise as well before working in this space. I thought menopause was hot flushes, truly, and your period's stopping. And that's pretty much all I knew about it. And I had no idea of the sort of the psychological symptoms that can go alongside it for some people and can make it really difficult to maintain a normal life. So yeah, there's some of the ways it can impact people at work.
Fantastic. And then I think Leanne's prepared a couple as well. Is that right?
Yeah. There's a lot on here about sort of the general thing. So I think what struck me about when I started looking into the menopause was there's at least 30 symptoms that you can look out for. And I knew literally, as Sarah said, just the hot flashes, the stopping of the periods. And it was things like, one of the things that sort of came up when it terrified me as a young woman was vaginal atrophy. So, just one of the things when I started this company with my co-founder, my mum turned around to whisper to me, and she was just like, something you need to address is, it's really dry down there. She'll probably hate me now for doing this in front of everyone. But, and then as I started to,
I said though, isn't it?
But I've never, I never thought about it before. And, and she'd obviously never thought about it before. And then the more we started discussing this with more women, everyone was just like, actually, everyone always says hot flushes. I said, but that's one of the things that bothers me. And one of the reasons why that bothers is not just because it can be quite painful, but people's sex lives are important for maintaining relationships. If you stop interest in sex, for example, then it impacts your relationship with your partner. And then, they're wondering, do you not fancy me anymore, and things like that. And they can be cause of a breakdown and things like that. I was listening to a podcast recently, and a gentleman said, I really wish I would have known that my partner was going through the menopause, because I think we would still be married today. Because what happened is the relationship had broken down that much, because he didn't understand why she was so angry all the time. Why wasn't she interested in sex anymore and things like that. And he thinks, it's probably because she was going through the menopause, and even she didn't realize that's what was going on. So it's beyond a health issue. It's a social issue. It can impact relationships. And obviously you bring that home, to work with you. As much as we try and separate work from life, sometimes if you're having a bad time at home, it does feed into it. So that was one of the sort of things that sort of came up time and time again that is not discussed, because, anything to do with down there is always a bit taboo and a bit embarrassing. But it's something that actually we need to really put on the radar, and it does have an impact. So if you would like to just go to the next slide. And again, sort of reiterating one thing, again, like as I say, I'm an advocate for, is it's not just an older woman thing. That people in their 30s do go through the menopause, particularly I've known a lot of women who've had hysterectomies. Now, the issue with hysterectomy is that, from what we've discovered in our research at Lyria Digital Health, is that women are not getting supported by their GPs in aftercare. So, they have a hysterectomy, which pretty much causes you to have an instant menopause, which can often feel a lot worse than a standard menopause, but are getting no support from that onwards, and not giving any information, not told actually this is what you're going through. And it can be very confusing, a difficult time on an already very confusing and difficult time during a hysterectomy. And so that's what we're sort of doing at the moment, is just trying to get that message out there. One of the sort of things we're working on at Lyria Digital Health is to try and bridge that gap between patient and clinician, to try and say, okay, we're looking at what's going on in our lives, and we're trying to feed that back to you in a way that you'll understand, so you can help us.
Brilliant. And then you've put a couple of resources on there as well, which is fantastic. So what we'll do after the session today is I can share those as well with everyone. So if anyone does want to access the information, that can be done. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go through a few questions that we've prepared and that we think are things people would like to know. But feel free, if you can get involved. I think we've already got one from Sandra, which is fantastic, around questions that you'd like to know more about today. And we will try and ask the professionals and help and answer those for you. But feel free to put things in the chat, and then we will come back to them at the end and answer those ones for you. So first question I've got then, what can we do as employees to better support our teams through the menopause? I think that's actually quite similar to something that Sandra's just asked as well, isn't it? Around, what can we do better as employees? So this one can go to all of you, but Sarah's probably a good person to start from Peppy. Employers, what can we do to help? As employers, what can we do to help support our employees?
Oh, perfect. Sorry, I thought you said employees. What can we do?
I think I did.
So yeah, as an employer, first of all, absolutely, get it on the agenda, have something, have some awareness around it, and get people talking about it and comfortable with this topic. It's very normal. It's going to affect all of us. If you are a woman, you'll go through it. If you're not a woman, if you know a woman, you'll experience it secondhand. If you work with a woman, for example. And what we know makes a real difference to people is getting that practitioner-led support to the person who's going through the menopause. So it's getting that support, advice, resources from a reliable source to the person who's actually going for it. So that's where we come in, and that's our day-to-day. That's what we specialize in at Peppy. And yeah, I think that's probably the most significant thing that a company can do, alongside absolutely the sort of messaging, awareness, and making sure it's something that's on the table, that there's somewhere for employees to go. Managers are comfortable having this conversation. I think all of those things are really important to what companies can be doing best.
Fantastic. Ladies, is there anything that you think we can add to that? Any experiences that you've had with employers before that you think would be valuable?
I think it's just getting that message out there so everybody understands and is aware that, you know, it does affect people in the workplace and people do need that support.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's such a taboo subject, isn't it? Which is so bizarre when we're all going to be impacted by at some point or another. So we really just need to get talking about it, don't we?
I think owning it as well, like calling it out. Don't just sort of shy away from it and say, you know, if you're in a meeting and you've lost the thread because, you know, brain fog, feel free to say, menopause, just hold on a second. And the more people sort of say that, the more we can sort of raise awareness, the more we can sort of own it and take it back for ourselves and say, actually, I'm going through something here. I'm doing my best.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like, wear it with pride that it's part of life, isn't it? And we need to talk about it. Unless people do talk about it when they're going through it, then it's never going to become acceptable further and further down the line, is it? And that's what we want to do, is create a real positive change.
I think that is sorry, Deborah, when you go.
No, I was just going to add on to Leanne's comment there, because the thing is, if you do actually say that, because I do say that a lot, people are really understanding and it takes the pressure off you, and that really does help.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I was actually going to build on what Leanne said as well. I think it's a really great thing to do if you can say, yeah, you know what, this is what's going on for me right now. I'm going through the menopause and that's why I forgot, you know, this thing or whatever it is that's happened. But it still is quite a brave thing to do, I think. And
yeah,
it
definitely
doesn't feel, depending on your work environment, and, you know, perhaps if you're, you know, hypothetically the only woman in the room sitting with, it might feel that bit harder as well. And so I think it is just knowing that your workplace is a place that you can do that, and you can say, this is what I'm going through. And it's great that you're doing that firsthand, Deborah, because I think that paves the way for others to be able to talk about their symptoms, their menopause and other issues as well. It's sort of a general opening of taboo topics.
Definitely. So I think we're all in agreement that it's all about raising awareness. So I'd love to know your ideas about, as a community, how we can raise awareness on this topic. Is super important, and how we can support one another through it. It's probably a great place to start with Deborah, because she's been a huge advocate for this, and I know you've got involved. Wasn't it the BBC as well? There's a couple of initiatives that you've been involved in which are fantastic. So it'd be fab if you can tell us a little bit more about them.
Yep, will do. So what happened was I started experiencing, well, I didn't realise I was experiencing menopausal symptoms. I have the Marina coil fitted, so obviously I have no understanding of when I would have a period. And then what happened was I started to get hot flushes, irritability, brain fog, all of the common symptoms I got, and a couple, when we talked earlier about vaginal dryness, I've got the total opposite, where I have vaginal wetness, which is something else that is really uncommon, but it's something that I do have. So I went along to the doctors, and I actually broke down in the doctors. Now, if everybody knew me, they would not think that would be my type of, they would not think
I'm a very strong woman.
Yeah, but everyone says, yeah, you're really strong and stuff. Well, I actually went to the doctors and I said, look, I says, I nearly pinned my husband up by the neck the other day because he asked what was for tea, and that's how bad mine had got. And she just said to me, she says, and that broke down in tears, and she says, I think you're actually going through the menopause. And I was like, well, how can I be going through the menopause? I'm 45. I says, it happens to old people, doesn't it? And it was like, no, it happens to people. It can happen to people really, really young, even in the teens. So it was like, that was like a big shock. So then we had a really good occupational health team at work. So I went to them and asked for their help. Unfortunately, they didn't support the menopause. So you could get pregnant, you could have depression, you could have anxiety, the whole host of symptoms. Everything was covered apart from menopause. So they said to me, if you want to promote it at work and get it out there, then you can do. So with the backing of the occupational health team, I then set up a meeting, promoted it through work, through various communication channels, but then just started talking to people in the office. And I was in an office which was very male dominated. So all the managers above me, they were all males.
Yeah,
so
I think that's something that Sarah's just mentioned in the chat as well, when senior management are all males. And
yeah, it is. So what we did was we started a program. So the first thing we did was get the message sort of out there with just some key facts. But also what we got some of the senior leaders on board, and they were the management ones, and it went right up to the directors, and then they actually informed the board as well what we were doing in regards to the menopause. So it actually got full support and full backing, and I think that is needed.
Mm.
So then what we had set up monthly meetings. Now these meetings were in works time, and as long as the managers supported it, then we had a meeting room and people would come along. And what we found was the meeting room worked better because people just wanted to speak and just chat. And some of it was just going through the symptoms. Some of it was support they needed at that time. Some people did actually break down in tears because they didn't understand what their body was going through. Obviously, we always recommended when it got to that stage, people did go. We always said, we're not medical. You do go and visit your own doctor and get some help. But then we'd talk about different treatments that we were all trying and what was working, what wasn't. And obviously one thing works for one person, one doesn't for another. But then to back that up as well, I set up a site. And on this site, it had links to all relevant. So people could access it at any time. Mm-hmm. So it had links to all relevant information, documents, anything that somebody found to help. So we'd tag like yoga things on YouTube and basically just anything that we thought as a group it was helpful to somebody else. That worked really, really well. The only issue with that is somebody has to stay on top of that all the time and lead it. Otherwise, it just dies a death. Apparently, since I've left, it has died where I previously worked, which is a real shame because it did have that traction and it was going somewhere. Because I represented our company, talking with people like Unison about menopause in the workplace, what we'd done and how it was working. So it was quite involved. But I just wanted to help people because I was so shocked at what was happening to me and I didn't understand it. I thought I really need to share this. So all my friends now, they all come to me. It's like, I think I'm starting with the symptoms and things like that. So they all come to me. But what I've really found is be open and honest about it. Talk about it. I do. If I do have brain fog a lot of the time, and I will tell people that. And people then understand. I know some people aren't comfortable speaking to males, but you've got to remember most people are married, or you've got a mum, or you've got a friend, or whoever. At some point, you are going to know somebody who is going through the menopause, and it's good to be aware of the signs because you might notice it before they do. We had held seminars as well, and we had males come along to them, and they found it really useful because they then understood how they could help their partners or help their mums, or just general awareness, so they knew that actually it's nothing that the woman can't control. It's out of her control. I don't know how to say it. It's like sometimes you can feel like you're shouting and irritable at somebody and you know you shouldn't be doing it. You really know, but you cannot stop yourself from doing that. So it's just little things like that, which if people understand, like Leanne was saying earlier, it might help people stay together and things like that. So yeah,
definitely. I think when things are hormonal as well, you've just driven to that point and there's nothing you can do about it. And the mind fog, like it must be so frustrating to go through. So you need a good support network. And the only way that you're going to be able to communicate what's really going on with you with everyone else is by letting people know about the situation you're in and making people aware. But I think by having a good relationship with HR, and even, I know you were saying then about who should be the driving force of this group. Someone needs to do it. You did a fantastic job of it with your old employer, but unfortunately when you left, it kind of died a bit of a death, didn't it? But who should be responsible for that as well, getting HR involved, and diversity and inclusion. I know a lot of the big companies in Yorkshire and across the north have got D&I specialists, and particularly in our industry within tech, everyone wants to encourage women in tech, and you think really kind of lower level grassroots, getting into tech in your early 20s 30s, but what you're not thinking about is females are in tech and have been in tech for years and require support a little bit later on. So if 1 in 10 women in tech is considering leaving when they hit the menopause, then we don't want that at all in technology. We need to do a better job of supporting our community. So I think that's really important. I want to be able to discuss all of this today. Leanne, have you got any ideas as a community what we can do better?
One of the things I find when we do our focus groups is we get a bunch of people together and we talk about symptoms. It's a real just open conversation, what people have gone through, people's experiences. And then afterwards, the response is always the same. The response is always, I haven't spoken to anyone else about this before. I feel so good sharing this. It was so good to hear other people's, experiences, to know that I am not alone. And a lot of people sort of, when they come to us as a solution, as a technical solution, it's like, make sure that community is embedded there. The community, the sisterhood is so important. So whenever you're setting anything up in terms of in your organization, try and get that community buzz around it. Like Deborah says, have those meetings, make sure it's in work's time, because, as sort of Deborah alluded to, if it's not in work's time, people won't have the time. And it also shows, as employers, it shows that you care. It shows that you actually value what people are going through. But one of the other things that I think would be really sort of beneficial would be to also remember to bring the younger generation on that journey with you as well. Because even I, as an organisation, I'm finding it a hard sell. So I tried to get in touch with younger women for focus groups to find out what their sort of baseline knowledge is. And the response I get every time when I ask someone is, I'm too young to even think about that. And that's concerning. So it definitely bring the younger people along with it as well.
Definitely. I love that. And there were some really great points. Fantastic. So I'd love to discuss now then, I think a lot of what we've discussed about as well is about, as employers, what we can do better. But it'd be brilliant to see if we've got any good sort of sterling case studies of organisations that have done a really good job in this space, created a real positive impact, and what we can learn from them. I think Sarah's going to send us.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Santander have done a brilliant job. I think that I hope they don't mind me calling them out as
it's a positive thing. I'm sure they'll love it.
It's been really led. There's been a lady called Teresa internally, and she has really been a sort of pioneer for talking about menopause internally. And they were one of the earliest people that we worked with. We did a trial with them very early on in our service, and just had amazing results that we were able to achieve with them. And I think one of the great things is, because this is an under-supported area and it's not widely talked about, it really had a knock-on effect for how positively the people felt about Santander as an employer, which was really great to see. A huge level of engagement as well, which was brilliant. And one of the things we've seen that's been really positive is just the amount of people who are needing this support, which has been again a bit of a revelation. You don't know how many people this is affecting until you sort of ask or put something out there. But I think they've been really brilliant at sort of getting hands-on support to the people that need it, and just really loudly and proudly talking about this issue. I mean, there are lots of employers as well in different sectors that I think are doing really well. Aviva's doing really great work in this space. Again, they held a huge event. It must be over a year ago now. They have this giant sort of auditorium room at the bottom. This is a pre-pandemic world, and it was filled with people, and it was all talking about menopause. And they had loads of stories from their teams internally, their own experience, how it had impacted them at work. And again, we now work with them to deliver that sort of practitioner-led support that we know can be really important. So yeah, there's a few companies who are really sort of paving the way in this space, and yeah.
That's fantastic. And it's good to hear, isn't it? I think in the bigger organizations, obviously there's HR budgets are a lot bigger than in smaller organizations. So I think it's great to hear how you could do it with zero budget as well. Like you could literally pull together a meeting group. I mean, Deborah, you did it with zero budget, didn't you? About bringing people together and creating a community as well.
Sorry, do you mind me just adding? I think as well, I think the groups are such a positive addition to any work environment, and lots of companies do have menopause groups, but lots really don't. But I think on top of that, like talking to your people teams and to your to your D&I leaders and saying that this is something that is happening to all women, and that we want to just say to everyone that we are happy to talk about it, and that it is something that we recognize as normal. So that they know, and just feed that back internally, because that, again, it's part of their role, I suppose, to foster that environment and that D&I agenda. So I think, yeah, anything that you can do that, might take, you maybe aren't, ready to take on the job of running a group as Deborah did, but you could just say that, have that small meeting internally and say, we want to talk about this topic.
Particularly, I think a lot of employers, they send like anonymous feedback every quarter, don't they? And that's something you could put it on things like that as a way, like, look, this is important, we need to discuss it, but you can put it in an anonymous form as something that needs to be discussed as well if you don't feel comfortable with speaking to someone more senior or higher up in the company yourself. So I think that's a really good idea. I think a lot of the problems that we've discussed today as well is this. A lot of symptoms are hidden, so it's not visible, so people aren't always aware, which is why you often have to be able to speak up for yourself, like Deborah did so well. But I'd love to discuss if you can give us some top tips on some of the symptoms and how you can handle them in the workplace. Obviously, hot flushes, everyone knows about hot flushes, but it'd be great if anyone's got any top tips on how to sort of, now we're working remotely from home, it's a little bit easier. You can sit at home in your bra, can't you, with all the windows open, but it's obviously you can't do that in a crowded office. So any top tips around hot flushes?
Yeah, one of them's really simple. It's like, if you are having hot flushes and you haven't got a fan and you need to be sat next to a window, just ask. Somebody will move and let you swap desks. But obviously, if they don't know that's what's affecting you, then that one is really good. Just ask. Just say, look, can I move my desk because I am, I'm having hot flushes. We also invested in some satellites, so we had them on a rota, so you could borrow the satellite for a couple of weeks to see if that helped you as well. That was especially for people who worked in areas where there was no windows. So that helps people as well.
It's a good investment, really, isn't it? It's one of those things that you don't think about, but the fact that someone's thought about that's fantastic. Any other top tips for hot flushes, ladies?
Well, I am not a clinician in this space, but happily we have lots of people in the team that are. So before I came on this, I asked our Director of Menopause Services, Kathy, what her top tips would be.
Fab.
So, yeah. Need to go to the experts on this. So she actually sent me a few through. One of them is prepare what you wear. We know that sort of natural fibers and loose layers of clothing, are really helpful, and avoid sort of high necks like I'm wearing today and close fitting clothes. Managing stress was something that she brought up, that flushes can often occur at times of stress. So if you know the things that you can do to manage sort of anxiety and stress, maybe building yoga or relaxation into your day, that might be able to help. Planning your environment, as Deborah just said, can you move desks or do you need a fan? And avoiding triggers. And for some people that might be caffeine or alcohol, or for others it might be.
Yes, that's what my mum was saying earlier, that she kicked really low caffeine, really low sugar diet now, because she knows that it will just set her off straight away. Yeah.
And even then the last thing she said was, having a cooling spray, those water mists, just for when you are having one there in the moment, it can be really helpful. So I think managing and doing what you can to mitigate them happening.
Fantastic. Love that. And those are that's the visible signs of it. But this is something that we discussed the other day, Deborah, that a symptom around memory and concentration in the workplace, which can be really, really frustrating. So any tips on that as well?
if you're feeling, so I found it knocked my confidence, and I don't know if the brain fog comes. So let me start again. See, happens all the time. So the brain fog for me knocked my confidence, and I think I'm still trying to build that back up. So what I do now is, and this is only for me personally, but I would sometimes just, I know it sounds really daft, but breathe. You know, just sit there and breathe, and then give yourself a couple of minutes before you respond to somebody if you think, you know, that things have overtaken you. I did a CBT program when I worked with the BBC on the what was it called now? Something about the menopause anyway. But when I took part in that program, I actually did some CBT work, and that really helped with the brain fog. Obviously, you have to keep it up constantly, otherwise you do slip back. But CBT, so cognitive behaviour therapy, or however you say that, I find that does help.
It's fantastic. It's good that that's made a real positive impact with yours, because it is, like you say, it's really frustrating at work. And when you're such a successful woman and you've worked your way up and you've got to a senior level in a business, and then this is a real knockback, and that for me is a huge worry, obviously, as an advocate of women in tech. That is quite scary, and
it's a massive social issue. It's you know, we all know about the impact maternity can have on your career prospects. You know, and then, you know, you start building up to the level that you were aiming for, you know, just before maternity, and then all of a sudden the menopause hits, and it can knock you right back to like where you were before. And, you know, a lot of the women we spoke to, you know, they said to us, you know, I need my brain for work. I can't have this fail me. You know, it's really important to me. You know, we've been speaking to directors and things like that, and you know, the lack of the confidence drop from going through the menopause has really impacted them. And we need these women to be in these roles, because we don't have representation in these roles, and it's really, really concerning. And I remember one participant, she said something to me, and it stuck with me so much. She said, I used to run wards, and now I can't even look after myself anymore. And that, to me, is just, there's no support there. There's not enough information. What can we do to do better there?
It's really sad, isn't it? Because as women, and obviously usually when it's more common to reach the age of menopause, you've probably finally got your kids starting to leave home, or your kids are teenagers, and you've finally prepared to focus some time. You've actually got some time to focus on your career and yourself, and then, like you say, you're set back again. So that's really worrying. Any more tips on that then, about the mood and concentration as well, and top tips for the listeners today?
Probably one of the things that comes up time and time again is, you know, people go to the GPs, not necessarily like Deborah didn't go to the GP for menopause symptoms. She went to see about her mood. Don't take no for an answer if you don't think that they're listening to you. Unfortunately, GPs are overstretched. Not a lot of GPs specialize in menopause, despite the fact it impacts half the population, but that's by the by. That's something else we're working on at Lyria Digital. We need to be experts in ourselves and know if something is going on and it's not normal, and, you know, this low mood it's something more than just depression. You know, if there's no other signs of the reason why you're having low mood, feel free to push back on those GPs, because they are overstretched. They don't have the knowledge to their hands. Keep asking, keep saying, no, I want you to look into something else. I want you to look further into this. Put the power back into your hands.
Yeah, I think that's a really good tip. I think Coldeep's just mentioned there that she had issues with GP not prescribing anything for menopause unless the blood's suffering from these mood swings. Yeah, I think it's really tough. And I think one of the information I didn't know, I mean, for me personally, it's been a real learning journey preparing for today, but the piece around anxiety as well, like I didn't know that was a thing, and other symptoms. So any advice and tips? I mean, yeah, I'd love to hear about that as well.
I don't know that there's anything I can say that's specific to anxiety, but yeah, I can definitely sort of contribute more on the memory and concentration side of things.
Right.
Yeah, so one of the things that, again, Kathy identified is that if you can figure out why this is happening, are there any contributing factors that make it worse? So is that tiredness, or too much work, or is there anything that's making this happen more often? And avoiding the negative thoughts, like, this is crazy, I'm going mad, why is this happening? Which is likely to sort of create the spiral, and trying to remind yourself that this will pass. And then one other thing, which is helpful in the modern world, is just to embrace the use of technology, making notes to yourself and reminders. Even pre-menopausally, my calendar is literally just full of reminders to do things the whole time. It looks like my but I think, it's, otherwise I would forget half the time. So I think making use of that can help.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I agree with that. Like trying to use lists when and where you can. Deborah, do you feel that that's helped you a lot, or is there anything?
Yeah, definitely. Because it also helps as well, because if you've got the brain fog and you think, oh, you're going to miss something, it then can lead to anxiety and stress. Yeah. So it's really, the list really does work. I use that every day. If you saw my works calendar, you'd see like every hour I have things in there to do, and that's just so I don't forget.
Yeah. And I think it was something great. Yeah, I think there was something great that you mentioned there as well, that this will pass. And it's just, I know, I'm sure, obviously it's easy for me to say in my situation, I'm not going through it right now, but I think that's something just really important. And that's why it's so important that we're discussing topics like today. So we are aware and people know, and they know the facts, and they've got some more information around that. Part of that piece around information, I think somebody's already asked in the chat as well, but have we got any sort of support groups, books, forums, any information that we can share to really give people more information and insight as well? Is there any top tips around that?
Yeah, the links on the slides, they're really good. They're full of information. So if you get those sent out afterwards, they're really good. Just be careful, obviously, when you're reading the web. Some things are good, some things aren't. Try and choose, reputable sites. What else can I really say?
Michelle Obama did a really great podcast recently, which is available on Spotify, all about her experience with the menopause, which is really, a nice one to listen to. I can put some links in the chat as well for some.
Yeah, fantastic. Or even if you send it across to Alicia at the end of today, we'll put it in the email as well, following up after today's event, so everyone can access it. If anyone's got any really top tips, or also anyone tuning in today, if you've read anything and it really made an impact, and you felt it was really fantastic for you, then please do put that in the information. So questions, if anyone's got any questions, feel free to put them in the chat or the Q&A section. Someone's dropped in a question: what do you advise for freelance women working in a male-dominated IT field where they do not have support access to the organization's well-being? That's such a good question. There's so many freelancers, contractors out there, and in an already, I guess, isolated world as a contractor freelancer, when you're going through menopause, that must be even tougher, right? Particularly when you're brought in for a specific project, you've probably got really high demands, there's high workload, there's deadlines. That's what contractors do in IT. And then suffering through menopause, the I guess memory piece, mind fog, all of those can be really tough, but then not having the support of a full-time employee.
I'd look for a group. I'd look for an online group. There's some that are based up in Scotland. If you go on the Menopause Matters website, they've got some really good links to some good groups on there. So if it was me, I'd join one of those groups and get some advice and support from them.
There's a really good community on Twitter at the moment as well. If you just start sort of looking for sort of menopause posts on there. The great thing about the last few years is that there's been a lot more attention given, which is, a positive move, and people are talking about it a lot more. So I found lots of people with really great experiences, going through the menopause, and they're really vocal, really sharing things. And that community is just thriving at the moment. So it might not be a hashtag that you always look up, but the menopause hashtag, and especially as we had World Menopause Day recently. So if you look up any of those, there's a really big community out there, which you don't know about unless you just really look for it. So
Fantastic. Thank you, Leanne. One of the attendees, how can one handle sleeplessness? It's affecting my daily routine. Yeah, this is something that I was discussing actually with my mum. That if I don't get at least 8 hours a night, I struggle. So can anyone got any top tips around this and how to help people get in a better pattern with their sleep?
Well, trying to you go.
You go, Deborah, go on.
I was going to say, try and disengage, obviously, from social media and all of your devices, at least now before going to bed. Maybe try a herbal tea, all things like that. Just anything that you would just try for not sleeping. But if you find that it really is getting bad, speak to your employer. You may be able to change your working pattern for a short period of time while you get over this. So it may be a case of actually, I mean, it'd be a lot easier now, I suppose, while most people are working from home, you can actually say, look, I'm not sleeping, it is affecting my work. Can I do, so, like 8 till 12, then have a sleep, and then maybe do 2 till 4 or 2 till 6, whatever. You'd have to discuss that. But that's a really good way of dealing with the lack of sleep.
I love that. Yeah, that's a great idea. Thank you.
I think that, yeah, basically reiterating Deborah's comments, it's not specific to menopause, but finding a way that helps you to relax, whether that's a bath or reading, definitely avoiding the tech before bed. We know that taking exercise, I know it's a cliche, but it actually ends up giving you more energy during the day and releasing the feel-good hormones, and then helping you to sleep better at night, and avoiding the things that we all know play into bad sleep. But again, I'm a total hypocrite here, because sometimes I'm the one having a cup of tea last thing in the afternoon as well. But watching the intake of like caffeine and sugar, making sure you're hydrated, all those things that can play into sort of like good sleep health, I suppose.
And one thing that's not a scientific study, so don't take my word on it, but there is some things out there. We noticed when we do our focus group that soy milk, a lot of the women that we've spoken to attribute that to helping them with their sort of sleepless night, because it stops the hot flushes in the night, which can keep you awake. So
yeah, that's great.
I haven't got the science behind it or anything like that, but
no, my mum's on that. She's on soy milk, and she said she thought it made a difference. So you've just got to try these things out. Anything helps, doesn't it? And I think Jenny said she's just bought a cooling pillow by Simba, and she's already seeing some benefit to sleep pattern. So thank you for that sharing, Jenny. Hopefully that might help for anyone listening in today. I think there's just one last question. So if anyone's got anything else they really want to get answered, please do put it on the Q&A or on the chat. Sarah, I've got a colleague experiencing menopause. How can I help her best? I love this. And this is what we're all about in our community, is about helping one another out. So thank you so much for asking that, Sarah. What do you think then, ladies? What can Sarah do?
Talk to her to start with. Ask her. Just say, I've noticed a few things about you. Are you okay? Do you need any support? Maybe even suggest, are you going through the menopause? Because not everybody knows that they are doing. I didn't. So maybe just ask those questions. Just talk.
Yeah. Love that.
Encourage her towards the resources that were shared at the top of the slides. There's lots of places where she can get information and some advice that she might not currently know about, and definitely encourage her to flag it internally, with her manager and their HR teams. Like this should be very normal for them.
And I think, be an ally in that sort of sense as well. Just sort of like, if you're in a meeting, maybe she's not present, and maybe the manager said, oh, she's been off lately, she's not been herself lately. Maybe say, there might be something else going on there. Be an ally, stick up for them. If it's menopause, you don't have to say it's menopause, but you just say, maybe you should have a proper word with them, because I think something is going on, and bridge that kind of conversation.
I think so. And I'm so great. Oh, sorry, what were you going to say?
Just be aware as well, menopausal symptoms and mental health symptoms can be very, very similar. So just be aware, even if you speak to somebody and it might not be menopausal, it might be mental health issue, or it might be the other way around. So just to be aware of that, because a lot of the mental health symptoms you do have going through the menopause as well.
Yeah, I think that's a really tough thing. Coldeep's written a lovely comment on the chat. Been experiencing symptoms over lockdown and struggled to find resources, and without medical diagnosis, low mood has been crippling. Thanks for the resource tips. Being of ethnic origin, friends do not openly talk about it. So thank you so much for joining in today, and that's great to hear Like, I think
Yeah.
what we've all been discussed today, really, the key takeaway for me, it's all about raising awareness, isn't it? And I think it's about speaking about menopause, being an ally. We've mentioned today about potentially creating an online support group. So if anyone is interested in getting involved, then what we'll do following the session today is we're going to send some feedback forms round. So they'll come from Alicia, who's put together the event for us today. She's in the background, but she's done all the hard work, really. So she's going to send back feedback forms. So if you can all write some feedback, any ideas or anything that you want to be discussed next time, we can take action and create a community from it, which is what we're hoping to do. For me, I really have learnt a lot, and I think all the symptoms aimed around menopause, everything is about attacking people's confidence, which I think is really tough. So by being an ally and raising an awareness, I'm going to do a post on LinkedIn. I've got about 15,000 connections on LinkedIn, so I'm going to do a big flashing post all about menopause and try and do my bit where I can to raise more awareness, so everyone can learn about it. But hopefully you've all enjoyed the discussions today, and thank you so much for attending. Thank you so much for our fantastic speakers. I think you'll all agree they've done a brilliant job. Is there anything else, any lasting comments that you want to add today, ladies?
I would say that it is a period of time when you go through the menopause, and you do come out of it the other side. I'm still waiting to come out the other side, as you can tell from my brain fog today when we've been talking. I'm currently 6 years into it now, nearly 7. So just be aware as well, it can be a long period of time as well, not just a short space of time, but we will get there.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Deborah. Leanne?
Just echoing that, really. I know we've been talking about the symptoms, and obviously they're, quite negative, but it is a good change. With it comes with a lot of positivity. It can be a period where you don't have to worry about periods anymore. You can almost, there's a lot of things where people come back to me and said, it's so nice because I can have a bit more of a cavalier attitude about some things that I used to really sweat the small stuff with. And with that, with age comes wisdom and experience, and so it's not something to fear. The only time you ever need to fear it is if you don't know about it, and you joining us today, you've taken that step forward to know a little bit about it. So keep learning, keep finding out about the symptoms, and as I said before, if you don't feel like you're getting the support from your GP, please keep pushing that. It's your body, what's going on with it.
Fantastic. I love that. My mum's actually just walked in the room, and I've asked her to come on camera, but she's too shy. She said that was one of her positives that she took from it. No more periods. And as Lisa said, a bit of a silver lining there for you. Is there anything you want to add to today?
My last thing is from a workplace perspective, that if you would like to see, this kind of support offered to your teams, then have a look at PEPI online. We're in loads of workplaces in loads of different sectors up and down the country, in sectors.
Oh, you've just gone a little bit quiet there. I don't know whether that's just me, but it seems to have gone a little bit quiet.
Sorry. Look at us online if you think this is something.
Definitely, everyone have a look at PEPI. If you haven't heard of them before, they're doing some amazing stuff. Lyria Digital, Deborah, I'm sure all the ladies today would love you to connect with them on LinkedIn. So please do connect, stay up to date on what we're up at Transition Partners. Thank you so much, ladies. You've been fantastic. And thank you for everyone to attending today. They've written some lovely comments already, which is brilliant. And hopefully we'll look forward to seeing you at some more events in the future. Thank you very much. Take care.
See you later.
Bye.